The most interesting guests in the music industry, entertainment, art, and politics step into the studio for Turning Point with Frank MacKay. And now, Turning Point with Frank MacKay.
Welcome to Turning Point. Our very special guest today is actress Kandi Clark. Kandi, welcome.
Hey, good to be here.
A lot of people know Kandi from her work in American Graffiti and The Man Who Fell from Earth. Or fell
The Man Who Fell to Earth.
To Earth, I'm sorry.
Hard to fall from Earth.
Yeah, right. I'm sure I'm not the first to make that mistake.
No, you're not.
And that was with David Bowie.
Think about it. Yeah, it was. It was with David Bowie and Buck Henry and Rip Torn.
Yeah, what was that like? What was it like working with Bowie?
It was really good. I'm so grateful that I hadn't seen him in concert before we started working together, because I would have been totally, intimidated. But since I had never seen him in concert, he was just like another actor to me. And we worked together really well. He liked to rehearse. He liked to run the lines, and I attribute that to him being a musician. They're always rehearsing and they think nothing of it. So we had a really good relationship, and it was a great script with an excellent director, Nick Rogue. And we shot in New Mexico, and that's a really pretty state. And it was just a lot of fun, and David Bowie was great.
How about Buck Henry? What was he like to work with?
Did I have many scenes with him? Yeah, I had I think one scene where he's trying to get me to sign off on something regarding The Man Who Fell to Earth, and I clear his desk, with my hands, lamps, everything goes flying. Because I miss my Tommy. But, it was easy.
Yeah.
Most actors are very easy to work with. They just want to do a good job.
Well, when you did your work with American Graffiti, and for American Graffiti, it culminated in an Academy Award nomination, and that's got to be exciting at any point.
That was thrilling. But I never expected to win. I went there with no speech. And I thought that Sylvia Sidney was going to win for Summer Wishes, Winter Dreams, because she had been around the longest. And a lot of times you feel like they'll give you an Academy Award for sentimental reasons because you never gave up, and you're still there. And that year, Tatum O'Neal won, the youngest,
yeah,
the 9-year-old. So that was a real surprise and a shock for all of us, I think. She won for Paper Moon.
Was that a surprise?
Yes, it was a total surprise.
Well, she did an excellent job in the movie, actually.
I know, but I think she was in the wrong category. She should have been in Best Actress instead of Best Supporting Actress, because she was really a lead character.
Yeah. But that was your first experience with the Academy Awards, right?
Yes, and it was fantastic. I had never been, patted on the back, hugged. I got telegrams. That's when they used to have telegrams. And even from Lou Wasserman, I was digging through some old stuff a month or two ago, and there was a telegram from Lou Wasserman, the head of Universal Studios.
My God. Oh, that must
I know.
And you figure this is going to last forever.
Oh, of course. You always think that.
Well,
If no one wants to bust your bubble and say, this is not going to last forever.
We're speaking with actress Kandi Clark, and we're talking a little bit about the business, but certainly about her career. And you've had a wonderful career. How many movies all totaled?
Oh, over 50 movies and television things.
Is there anything that we've never seen you in, or you assume that people never saw you in, that you wish they would have?
Well, most of my stuff was really, released through a studio. So most of it was seen in one way, how many people, we don't know, but... most of it was seen.
Let me word.
There's a lot of, Yes, word it another way.
Let me word it another way. Is there anything that you thought was just so wonderful, it put together a great movie, and that you, on the acting end and the director and the production, they did their job, but the theater didn't, or not the theater, the movie studio didn't in promoting it?
Well, I would say that Man Who Fell to Earth really got ruined by the American distributor. It had come out in Europe, the full uncut version, and that was 2 hours and 23 minutes, and it was going to be distributed by a company called Cinema 5, which had a real high-end reputation, kind of like what's his name, Harvey Weinstein's company. What's the name of that company? Anyway, the owner of the company thought, when he saw the film, he edited it down to 2 hours, and it was a dismal flop for years. Nobody saw it, and I was so disappointed. I was going to go on the road for the Man Who Fell to Earth and travel around the country and be on a 2-week tour to promote it, but once I saw how they had chopped it up and taken out 23 minutes just willy-nilly, they had hired this editor that did commercials, like for Kraft macaroni and cheese and that kind of thing, and he just, in a few days, just edited the film down to a 2-hour version, and it had taken Nick Rogue over a year to edit, painstakingly, slowly, but he had a beautiful film and a classic. And many years later, I was thinking about the Man Who Fell to Earth. I was living in New Jersey at the time, and I heard that the owner of the company was gone. So I called the new person that was in charge of distribution, and I gave him a pitch. I said, you don't have to make a new poster. You just put a banner across and say, uncut director's version. And I said, I'll do whatever it takes to promote it. Radio, television, I'll go on the road for it. And
what year was that?
Back. Huh?
What year was that?
Oh, God. I think somewhere in the 90s. I'm not sure.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, I cut you
Anyway, so he calls back. We have a good relationship. He calls back and he says, "Well, bad news. Our negative has been all cut up." The guy cut the negative too.
Oh man.
Yeah, and so I said, "Well, I know where the negative is, and it's in London, England, and here's the name of the company, and here's the people to ask for," and so that's what he did, and the rest is history. It came out. It was in New York City. That's where it started, and slowly but surely the copies of the chopped up version of the Man Who Fell to Earth disappeared and was replaced by the full version, and now Criterion has put it out, and it's unfortunate because I was really relying on that film and my work to kind of catapult me to, more work, and I was going to run an Academy Award campaign, but, with it all chopped up, nobody could make heads or tails of the film. If you ever see the uncut version, it is really hard to follow.
We're with Kandi Clark. We're with actress Kandi Clark. Kandi, how did it do in England?
Oh, it did well. David Bowie's from England, and, it's always been ahead of its time. But now, people are catching up, especially now that it's the full version, the director's cut is out. You can, it's a complicated film, and it's going, around in time. The actors age, the Man Who Fell to Earth doesn't age. And so it's, you really have to pay attention. It's beautifully shot by Tony Richmond, so there's a lot of gorgeous, frames in that film. And I thought David Bowie was just at the height of his beauty and his handsomeness, and also he was perfect as the the man from another planet. He looked like he was from another planet.
And some people would
the
say
red hair and the blonde streak.
Yeah, some people would say he was perfectly cast for that.
He was perfectly cast for that.
Yeah,
perfectly cast. You couldn't ask for a more perfect actor, and I thought he did a fantastic job. It was a lot of work. We had to wear a lot of appliances and age and all that stuff you get stuck on your face, that rubber stuff that's supposed to age you and make you look old.
Yeah.
That takes hours to put on.
We are with Kandi Clark, actress Kandi Clark, Academy Award nominated for her work in American Graffiti. She should have won, but that bitch Tatum O'Neal. No, I'm just kidding. But I think a lot of people, those two movies that we're talking about have.
Oh my gosh! What?
Those two movies that we've been talking about,
yes,
have a cult following to both of them. A Man Who Fell to Earth certainly has a bit of a cult following, and
it does,
and we can't ignore that. American Graffiti, I mean, completely, but it's certainly more mainstream. But those two movies came around a time, and again, I'm 45 now, so I mean, when cable television came out, there wasn't such a glut of movies that, for example, HBO, I think, was the one channel on the one station, and they were just playing those movies over and over and over again. And, American Graffiti, more than anything, it was on constantly. I mean, constantly.
It still is.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I'm sure.
The thing lives on television. It really does.
Yeah, and it stands up. I mean, it's good.
It does. It stands up. And I've met people that have seen it thousands of times.
Yeah.
Jeff Beck, the guitarist.
Yep.
3,000 times, he told me.
That's amazing.
Because he wanted to replicate the car, plus he's graffiti mad. And he built a car exactly like the yellow 5-window coupe.
Who else has walked up to you about that movie? Let's talk specifically about American Graffiti. Who has walked up to you that threw you for a loop and said, I loved your work in there, I love that movie? You mentioned Jeff Beck. Who else stands out?
Oh, millions of people. I've done a lot of hot rod shows. I've traveled to Sweden twice. I've gone to Japan. I've gone across the U.S. I've been doing hot rod shows since like 1999. And just millions of people. And they'll get teary-eyed about it, talking about how they took their wife, who was their girlfriend at the time, to the movie, and now they've been married for, 40 years, and, they've built their car. They got into the pinstriping business because of American Graffiti. They started collecting hot rods and collector cars because of them. They got their shop, their custom shop, because of American Graffiti. All of those oldies, the music, George Lucas got all of those songs, 41 songs, for $40,000. So that's like $1,000 a piece. And at that time, those artists, those musicians, their careers were pretty well, over with. It was the Beatles, it was disco, oldies was passé. But it really worked in the film, and it revived so many of those musicians' careers, and their groups got back together, and they started doing shows at fairgrounds, and it just rebuilt the whole their whole careers. And so I and a lot of people owe their livelihoods to American Graffiti.
We mentioned you just mentioned George Lucas.
I did.
And again, we're with actress Kandi Clark, and talking about American Graffiti. What was it like? Well, what was he like at that point, George Lucas? What was your impression of him?
He's very, 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 very quiet, introverted. He's... I think he never really enjoyed directing, and that's why he went more into, other people directing his stuff, and he just, edits. That's what he likes to do. I never thought he'd be a billionaire, if that's what you want to know. He's the one that got the idea to make the toys, for Star Wars. And to this day, I was over at Target buying cat food a week or two ago. There's a whole aisle to this day devoted to Star Wars toys.
It's amazing.
To this day.
It's amazing. Just absolutely.
It is amazing.
Do you remember any of the direction he gave you?
He hired people that he thought could do the job, and so we would rehearse the scene. It was a low budget film, and I think all total the cost, including the music, was $850,000. That includes editing, music, hiring the actors, location. We shot in Petaluma, California. We didn't have much in the way of equipment or dressing rooms. We had no chairs. If you wanted to sit down, you had to sit on the curb or sit in one of the cars. It was very basic, and we shot at night. We shot in Petaluma, California, and that summer it was so foggy and so cold. It was about, 50 degrees at night, maybe less, and we're supposed to be acting like it's a hot summer's evening, and it all took place in one night. The whole idea was very unique, and with the interaction of the multitude of stories plus the music interweaving, kind of building the stories and adding to the scenes. George was quiet. He didn't say much, but he mostly talked to Haskell Wexler, his cinematographer. And as the movie went on, he got thinner and thinner and quieter because in the day he was editing and at night he was shooting. So he was working nonstop day and night. And, it was very pleasant to be with. He wasn't yelling at anyone, but he was, kind of there but not there.
Kandi Clark, actress Kandi Clark, is talking about her career and certainly American Graffiti and the launchpad that movie served as. You mentioned George Lucas being a billionaire. If Ron Howard's not a billionaire, he's certainly on his way to being a billionaire.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. What was your impression of him?
Well, he was one of our true teenagers at the time. And the rest of us were older. He had a little film that he had shot with his brother as the main actor, and he had entered a Kodak film contest for student filmmakers, and he had won second prize. And he told me about it, and he had a little viewer thing where you put your eyes up and then you hand crank it. And I watched the film, and it was really good. And I said, Ronnie, you're going to be a big director one day. And he wanted me to be in this film called Eat My Dust. And
is that Roger Corman?
Yes, he directed that. And I was supposed to be his romantic interest, and I turned him down. And he never asked me to do another thing again. So I guess he's still miffed about that.
Why did you turn him down?
Because I didn't like the script.
Yeah, I mean, in retrospect, you would have done it like the script or not.
Well, who has 20/20 hindsight?
Right, of course.
There's a lot of things that I would have done that I didn't, like buy gold when it was $45 an ounce.
Yeah.
It's easy to look back on stuff. Well, I would have done it different, but, who knew at the time?
Let's talk about your career prior to American Graffiti. How many films or how much work did you do prior to
Well, I had been in one film called Fat City, directed by John Huston.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I started at the top.
Yeah. You're not kidding.
And that was great. That was with Jeff Bridges and Stacy Keach, Susan Terrell, and John Huston directing, Ray Stark producing, and it was, just fantastic. We shot it up in Stockton, California, 2 months in Stockton. And we stayed at the Holiday Inn, which was next door to the Civic Center. And, the Civic Center offered boxing, roller derby, and salsa dancing. And it was a lot of fun.
Actress Kandi Clark is our special guest today on Turning Point.
Turning Point with Frank MacKay returns right after this. Welcome back to Turning Point with Frank MacKay.
Actress Kandi Clark is our special guest today on Turning Point. How did you get into acting in the first place? Well, let's start from the beginning. Where did you grow up, and how did you get into acting?
I grew up in Fort Worth, Texas. I'm the oldest of 5. I have 4 brothers. And that's where I grew up.
Did you do...
We were very... we didn't have any money, and at that time they didn't have the social network that could help you. They didn't have all of that stuff that they have today, so we really struggled.
Were you a 2-parent home?
No, just my mother and the 5 kids. My dad was an alcoholic, and so... he was there in body, but not in spirit. He left when I was 12 and moved to San Jose, California. He was a chef, and a really good one. He was a good cook.
Did you have a relationship with him afterwards, or was that it?
I did. I was the only one that really spoke to him. My brothers had no relationship with him, and he would always call and say, I'm going to come down there and, straighten out and do your career. And he'd always threaten. I'm like, no, I'm thinking. But, of course, he never did. It was just a bunch of talk.
Yeah.
Thank God.
So from high school, or when you were in high school, and again, just a reminder, we're talking with Kandi Clark, the actress.
We are.
And in high school, did you get involved with all the drama clubs?
No, I did not. I was really an outsider. And I had a few friends. I was kind of a fringe character, that was always on the edge, not too involved.
What were you into? What were you into?
Jack Daniels, drinking and being a hard-drinking teenager, really.
You learned from your dad.
Not that I'm proud of it, but that's what happened.
You learned from your dad on that, I guess,
I guess so. But, in Texas, there were a lot of teenage alcoholics at the time.
Yeah.
Well, and liquor was not easy to get. It was, at the nightclubs, you had to bring your own bottle. And they would serve setups, the bars would. And there was a lot of underage kids getting into these bars. Back when I was a kid, you didn't have to be a certain age to buy a pack of cigarettes. Your mother or your father could send you to the grocery store if you were 5 years old, and they would sell you cigarettes.
Yeah, I think
how it was.
Things have changed, that's for sure.
Yeah, there's all kinds of rules now.
Yeah. So how did you get into acting?
Oh, that's a really long story. How much time do we have?
I don't know. Well, give us the Reader's Digest version.
The what?
The Reader's
Digest version?
Yeah, a small...
Well, I was modeling in New York. I lived in New York City, and I wanted to do some extra work, be an extra. And I heard you could, get paid $35 a day, and all the donuts and coffee you could drink. And, it seemed like a really easy job, so I went to this casting office, and... I got an extra job right away. I was in this crowd scene of about, 100 people in a Dustin Hoffman film called Who is Harry Kellerman and Why is He Saying Those Terrible Things About Me? A very long title. But I thought it was really neat to look at Dustin Hoffman, and, we just did the same thing over and over again, come through this revolving door like at the end of a work day, and... Dustin Hoffman would drop his musical instrument, and we would be flooding and walking around him, and, he had on a fuzzy wig and had a lot of orange makeup on. But when you saw the film, it his skin tone looked totally right. But when you saw him in person on a sunny day, it looked just totally orange-faced. So, yeah.
Someone knew what they were doing.
I guess so.
So
anyway, from extra work, I segued into acting.
What about John Huston? Not to go into too much about him, but what was it like working with a legend like John Huston? It
was fantastic. When I first did the audition, I had no idea who he was, and I was really bad at the audition. And but for some reason, they said I was going to have to come back for a screen test, and I was, I just wanted to be an extra. I didn't want to be at that point, I didn't want to, do any memorizing or any of that. But they insisted, and so I went to the screen test, and there was Margot Kidder was also testing, and so was this other actress named Jennifer Salt, who was, her dad was Waldo Salt, and I think he was a writer. But anyway, Jeff Bridges was there, and he and I just instantly love at first sight, and he and I were together for 4 years. But
were you together when American Graffiti was being shot?
Yes. So I did the screen test. I met Jeff Bridges. We moved in together, and we did the movie together. That was a multitude of pluses on that film. That was great.
Yeah.
And John Huston was nice as he could be. He was tall and very elegant. And also he dressed the part. Like if you saw a movie about a director, this is how a director from Europe would dress. Matching everything, gabardine suits and, capes, wool capes from Ireland and, like a Sherlock Holmes cap that matches and, beautiful leather shoes.
Yeah.
And he smoked Dunhill cigars all day long. That's when you could smoke on the set and everything.
Yeah, things have changed. So certainly smoking is not...
that's when you could smoke on an airplane. When I think back of smoking on, public transportation, my God.
Oh, never get away with it now. People would...
No, if you lit up on an airplane, but then people could... First, you could light up anywhere. I'd be sitting next to, I'd be in the middle seat or whatever, just puffing away, and so would everyone. And then they moved everyone to the back of the plane. If you wanted to smoke, and progressively they got you back to the back of the plane, and then they just, said nobody can smoke anymore. But what is really funny, for years they still had the ashtrays in the arm of the seats.
Are you a smoker?
Not anymore, no. I quit in 1988.
Oh, that's good.
I will never touch cigarettes again.
No, I think a lot of us would echo that. Well, let me ask you. You mentioned your relationship with Jeff Bridges. You were in a relationship. You were living with him at the time of American Graffiti.
Yeah.
Do you think the fact that you were with him kept you out of a relationship with any of the other actors there?
Well, I would hope so.
No, I'm saying, would there have been a relationship with any of them?
With, say, Richard Dreyfuss? No.
Harrison Ford?
No.
No. So there was no chemistry there.
No.
So. No,
and Charles Martin Smith? No. He played Toad.
Yeah, I know who he is.
I mean, we all got along. It wasn't, we weren't intermingling in that way. But we all got along as friends, and that was really important, and I think that's what showed in the movie.
How about Ronnie Howard? Was he involved with a girl during the movie? Do you remember?
Oh, gosh. Oh, yes. He had his girlfriend, Cheryl, who he wound up marrying, and they're still together.
That's amazing.
And she came to visit on the set, and she had red hair, and he had red hair. They looked like brother and sister.
It's amazing. He was focused back then. He had his steady girlfriend he's still married to.
Yeah, and
he had his film.
Actually the girl next door. Like, she really lived next door.
It's amazing.
And they've been together since.
You mentioned him
since
being
high school.
You mentioned him being a teenager. He was probably more experienced than just about anybody, including George Lucas.
Yes.
On that, I mean, he had how many years of Andy Griffith
But,
show?
he comes across as not a wise guy. He's very apple pie. That's how I describe him.
How does that happen?
Very Americana.
How does it happen with a Ron Howard and maybe like a Jodie Foster, for example? I mean, who turned out as child stars to be, one's an Ivy Leaguer and one's a near billionaire. How does that happen? You see all of these horror stories and nightmares with the children's stars, and some of them just skate right past it. I mean, is it upbringing? What is it?
Yeah, Ron Howard had a mom and a dad and a brother, and they all lived together in, I think, Burbank. And, he went to public school, and he was never treated like, special. He wasn't spoiled. He didn't have high, a big head about his work or any of that. He was kept very grounded. I don't know about Jodie Foster.
We are speaking with Kandi Clark, actress, and certainly a little bit of a historian here, a little bit of a film historian. And, we haven't touched on any of the other work, but I don't mind because we are coming into a special year of American Graffiti, and I know there's going to be some big celebrations coming up for 2013. Am I right?
Well, it'll be the 40th anniversary, which is so hard to believe, but that 40 years have passed because, I talk about it so much and I relive it so much that it really doesn't seem that long ago, but it is. And 40 years of pleasure, and it's a film I'm really proud of, and it's a film I'll be forever connected to. And if that's my biggest thing, then, biggest film, the one I'm most famous for, then so be it. It's a classic.
It's a classic. And, it's one of the greatest movies ever made.
It's in the best 100 films of all time by the American Film Institute.
Yeah, where is it on the list?
Well, at one time it was in the 70s, and now the last time I checked it was in the 60s. It could be getting closer to number one, which is, my goal. I would love it to be number one.
Well, I mean, it is such an excellent film, just from start to finish. The acting, not only the work that you did and Ron Howard did, but everyone, just from start to finish.
I every so often I'll do one of these hot rod shows, and they'll have a drive-in screening of American Graffiti, because that really goes with the hot rods. And I'll watch the film, and it's not like I'm looking at myself. It's like I'm looking at these characters. And I've seen it over 50 times, but every time I see it, it's like seeing it for the first time. I forget where the jokes are, and they always make me laugh. And, it's just such it's very PG, it's very Americana, there's nothing offensive about it, but it's hilarious. It is a funny film.
In retrospect, in 2020 hindsight, we all have it. Who would have been, in your mind at the time, who would have been your most likely to succeed out of all of those characters, acting-wise and directing-wise?
Gosh, the long pause, and we don't have time for long pauses on the radio.
That's all right. We could edit.
Yeah, I don't know. I've never thought. Harrison Ford would be kind of last down the list.
I imagine, right? Harrison Ford was just a bit player in that when it came down to it.
Yeah, and also he was kind of off-putting.
He was.
He really took his character seriously, and he was kind of that falfa guy day and night.
What was he, like method acting?
I have no idea, but he would, glare at you. I have snapshots of him, and he's always glaring into the camera.
Yeah, maybe it was method
acting. You have no right to take my picture.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Even then.
What about Dreyfuss? What was Dreyfuss like?
At that time, he was mourning the breakup of his girlfriend, and he was kind of in a depression, really. Spent a lot of time in his room, alone.
Wolfman Jack?
Crying, I think.
Yeah, what about Wolfman Jack?
He worked one evening, I think. I never met him until way after the fact, after the film was over with.
What about Mackenzie?
And it turned out he was doing a lot of hot rod shows and county fairs, but he never let us in on that. Never told us about it.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, he might have done, he might have felt that was beneath him somehow, right? Was he
Not beneath him.
No?
No, because he was doing it.
Yeah, well, I'm saying he might have felt...
He was a big star in that world.
He might have felt that promoting it to you guys was...
Well, he really didn't know us. I mean, we had really no connection. We didn't have each other's phone numbers or anything. He flew in, I guess, for the evening and did those scenes, and then he was gone. And when we didn't have to work, we certainly didn't show up for work to watch, because there was no place to sit, and it was really cold, and we had our time off. We didn't want to go out and stay up all night watching other people do scenes.
We are with Kandi Clark, actress, and we're talking primarily about American Graffiti. We've mentioned, well, I would say this, when you mention child stars, you always think about this Dana Plato and the horrible tragedy that went along with her life. But another person whose name comes up in child stars, and not certainly not tragedy, but certainly controversy and adversarial relationships with the rest of the world, is Mackenzie Phillips. Did you?
Oh yeah, Mackenzie.
Yeah. What was your impression of her?
She was great. She and I hung out all the time, and I think she was 11, but she seemed like, my age. She was one of the gang. So, only later you find out about her childhood and being, with John Phillips as her father and, Michelle Phillips and, that lifestyle. But then she was just very, feet on the ground, kind of a kid like maybe Jodie Foster would be, just more mature than you would expect.
Precocious.
Yeah, precocious. There's the word.
There's the word.
And, she was really good in the film. And
she was excellent. She was
She
really
said
good.
her, she just arrived on the set. She was 11, and she wound up having to stay with one of the producers, Gary Kurtz, because she just, they just put her on a plane, and 11-year-old, and here I am. She had no guardian or anything.
Yeah, laws are different now. You'd have to have one of the parents or have a legal guardian.
Oh, you have to have a guardian.
Yeah.
But then, her parents were, hippies.
Yeah. Were you partying with her? I mean, was it like the type of thing where she was drinking or smoking or doing anything around the set?
I don't think she was a smoker then, and I never offered her a drink.
Yeah, no. But I'm saying, was she, did you see her partying?
No, she was just hanging out, working,
Not
she was
difficult.
11, so that might have been before she got so entrapped in that lifestyle.
Yeah, it's.
I think when she did One Day at a Time and those films, that series, she was a lot older. She might have been in her 20s at that point.
How many of the folks from the movie do you keep in touch with on a regular basis?
Paula Matt, Bo Hopkins, Cindy Williams, Mackenzie. Every so often I'll call Charlie. He hasn't done any hot rod shows. He lives in Canada, and he's been up there for years.
Nobody's died from that original cast, am I right?
Manny Padilla.
Oh, Manny
There's a few people who have died, but not the main character.
Who's Manny Padilla? What did he play?
Played one of the pharaohs.
Okay.
He was the little Hispanic guy, but he was doing a lot of hot rod shows with us.
Did he reenact his? I mean, did he recreate his role sort of for Happy Days? Did he do a?
He might have been in Happy Days. Yeah, I think he was.
One of the early episodes.
He was a good friend of Ron Howard, so I think Ronnie hired him for quite a few things.
Yeah. Now, when you saw Happy Days emerge, what was your thought? Were you thinking about work on there, or were you just thinking big screen?
No, at that time I was a movie snob, and I didn't want to do TV.
Yeah. Did they approach you about it?
No. And I had tuned out of TV. I don't even think I've seen one episode of Happy Days.
Yeah, it's the early episodes were absolutely great. I mean, they were very, very good. Almost like a movie. The first
I think that was Gary Marshall.
Yeah, Gary Marshall was excellent. Did you work with Gary over the years?
I think he wanted me to be in. He was going to do a series called Alan the Pussycat, and I went with my manager to meet him at his office, and then I proceeded to say, I really don't want to do TV.
Yeah.
It's stupid.
Well, hey, listen. You live and learn. You live and learn.
I know. Now, I wish I had started in TV. I would have a big TV queue, and I'd still be working in television.
Well, living and learning is a big part of it.
Well, sometimes you learn too late, and the opportunities are behind you.
Yeah. Actress Kandi Clark is our special guest today on Turning Point.
Turning Point with Frank MacKay returns right after this. Welcome back to Turning Point with Frank MacKay.
Actress Kandi Clark is our special guest today on Turning Point. Kandi Clark, I was going to say best known for American Graffiti, but that's not.
Oh, yeah.
You have a body of work. You really have a body of work that's tremendous. And over 50 films is a wonderful career.
It is.
And let me ask you about some of the roles that you passed on. And I hate to rub it in.
Passed on?
Yeah.
There haven't been many that I've passed on.
Well, that's recently, but what about it in the past? You passed on Alan the Pussycats, right?
That was going to be a TV series.
Yeah, well, what about TV? What did you pass on TV?
Good grief, I don't remember. We're talking, a long time ago. These are not things I'm focusing on.
When was the last time you spoke to George Lucas?
I don't know. Years.
When you were hired for American Graffiti, what were the expectations? What did you think? This is going to be a nice little movie, or this is...
Oh, I thought it was a great script, and I thought, it was exactly what we were doing in Fort Worth, Texas. Cruising, looking for, action, drinking, smoking, listening to Wolfman Jack.
Were you listening to Wolfman Jack?
Yes.
Did he have, he still had shows? He had shows going on?
Yes, he was broadcasting out of Mexico, I think. Had a huge tower. And, there were all kinds of theories as to who he was, just like in the movie.
That's interesting. That's actually a great scene when he's seen talking through the crack. That was Richard Dreyfuss, right? Who looks in and sees him, and he's puts on his Wolfman voice. That was actually a very good, little scene, and it says a lot. It says a lot more than what you would.
It says a lot about the mystique of Wolfman. Nobody knew who he was or what he looked like.
Well,
there are all kinds of theories.
I certainly think we all know what the turning point in your career was. What was the turning point in your life?
The turning point was when I left Fort Worth, Texas. I was going to go, well, it's a long story, but my friend Judy and I, we were working at the Apparel Mart. I think I had graduated high school. And the Apparel Mart is where all these vendors come in from New York City or around the country, and they show their clothing in these little booths. And my friend Judy and I got hired as models, the certain vendor would have some clients there wanting to buy for their department store or whatever, and Judy and I would quickly go backstage, change clothes, and come out with the items, And that's how they got orders for stuff. Anyway, so the guy that had the booth, his name was Peter Callis. I'll never forget his name. And Judy and I were like 19, and he said, "Yeah, if you're ever in New York, look me up." And he gave us a card. And that was that's the last thing you want to say to a couple of teenagers that want to escape.
Yeah.
The small town and go to the big city. So, I bought my youth fair ticket, which was $40, I think, round trip on TWA. They had like a summer special. And, Judy and I were going to go together, and she totally disappeared. And I couldn't find her. And I called and called and called, and then I thought, well, I've got my ticket, I'm going. So I took the midnight flight. Might have been the 1 a.m. flight, I don't know, but the red eye. And as we were starting to come into New York City, I saw New York City from the air, and it had the sunrise light hitting it. It was all kind of pink and gold.
Wow.
And I was looking out the window. I had the window seat, and I'm looking out the window, and I thought, I'm never going back to Fort Worth, Texas. And I kind of moved into New York City from the air, really.
Yeah.
And I remember I had my little bag, and I was walking the streets in New York City, like, Joe Buck from Midnight Cowboy.
I was just going to say.
Yeah. Looking up at all the tall buildings. And I finally find, it was a confusing city, but I loved it. I loved it immediately. I loved it from the air. And that's my turning point.
Go ahead.
From New York City, I got into modeling, and from modeling, I got into acting.
How about the audition for American Graffiti? What do you remember about it?
There was really no audition. You just met with George. And at that time, I was very desperate to get a job. And so I thought, this time I'm going to dress up as I was told. I hadn't read the script. I was told that it took place in the 50s. So I had on a blue jeans rolled up and some saddle Oxford shoes and a Letterman sweater. I found an old Letterman sweater, and I put a high school ring on a chain. I pulled my hair back in a ponytail, and I'm sitting in the lobby. And there's all these other actors there, and I'm the only one dressed up. I felt like such an idiot. But I go in to this tiny, tiny little office, and basically there was just a room for a desk. There was George Lucas sitting behind the desk, and then there's me standing in front of the desk, and then there's the wall behind me. I mean, it was small. It was like a cubicle. It was like a closet, really. And he didn't say anything to me. I was just kind of, I knew that I had struck out. And I called my manager when I left, and I said, well, I blew it again. And, I told her I dressed up for the part, and I guess that was a no-no. And, So a few weeks later, I'd gotten a hold of the script, and I said, Pat, you've got to get me in on this movie. And she said, well, you've met George Lucas. He didn't respond, and, I can't get you back in. So I kept bugging her, and I said, I've got to get back in. And I go back. She finally gets me back in, and I go back in, and I don't mention, I'm just dressed as myself. I don't mention anything about being there before or remember me. I was the one in costume, nothing. And the next thing I know, they're asking me to do a screen test. So it wasn't as glamorous as you would imagine. There were about 200 actors over at Dove Film, and it's very intimidating, and you could see everyone doing their screen tests. And there were all kinds of TV stars there, and I remember Judy Strangis was there, and she was like the star of Room 222. And I had this one little scene memorized, and my name finally gets called, and I go in and to this kind of alcove area, and they have a park bench, and Toad's there. I meet him. He's really, really short. Charles Martin Smith is short. He's about 5'4", and I'm 5'7", and I think, well, there goes that. We're nowhere close in height. And I do this scene where Toad's telling me I look like Connie Stevens, and I basically gave up, and I'm just kind of, saying the lines, and I had no hope for it. I was just going through the motions. And lo and behold, I got the part. And George Lucas was videotaping it, and he had this it looked like a pink plastic video camera, like the cheapest model you could ever buy. And later, years later, I said, George, whatever happened to my screen test? I'd really like to see it. And he said, well, it came out black. And I'm, black? Well, why'd you hire me? And he said, well, I liked what I saw through the viewfinder. So that's how I got hired. It was just all basically, an accident.
Did he have any idea that you were there on your second go-around?
No, he never mentioned it, and I certainly wasn't going to mention it. No.
So that's the way to go. I mean, that's perseverance. You just switched your look. He's probably seen hundreds of girls at that point.
I figured he's not going to recognize me.
Is the role you ultimately got the one that you read for originally?
Yeah, that was the one I read for.
You didn't even think about Cindy Williams' role, right?
No. In fact, I thought my character was the best character.
Yeah, I think a lot of people agree with you. The Academy agreed with you.
Yeah, and, the makeup lady and I and the wardrobe people, we kind of designed the character. And the makeup hair lady is the one that said, if you have really light blonde hair, you'll really show up. So we found this wig, because my hair is so straight, and it wouldn't hold a curl. It wouldn't have, because you had to have that look, the flip, and all that teased big hair. And so we found this great wig that was really too small for me, and it was all cut. We had to split it up the back and then kind of artfully smudge the hair around so it would cover the split. And it was kind of like a child-sized wig, really. And the hairdresser said it was made out of yak's hair. That's why it held such a curl. I'm like, wow, yak's hair, yeah. But she, she's the pro. She would know. Who's
got the wig? Do you have it in a special place, or
No, it went back to the rental place. The wig rental place, and we found it again because we did more American Graffiti. And I said, well, it was at a rental place in the valley, and so they remembered. They go, oh, yeah, that's the blah, blah, wig rental place. It was kind of out of someone's private home, but they had a rental thing,
We're speaking with our special guest, Kandi Clark, today. Actually, it's fascinating, not only for people that are into American Graffiti, but people that are into, acting in general. I mean, you're giving us a real insight here. More American Graffiti. Was that a big payday for you guys?
Well, not compared to today's payday.
No, but still, for the time.
But it was really nice to get. And, my character wound up in Haight-Ashbury, and that was certainly fun. And I was working with Mackenzie Phillips again. And, when I was living in New York back in the 70s, you would read about Haight-Ashbury and all the fun that was being had. And I always wanted to, be there, but I kind of got to be there. We were recreating Haight-Ashbury, and that was fun. It was with, a lot of the familiar people we'd already worked with, in the first film. But the story was a little too serious. I think people wanted to see more, like kind of just pick up where we left off in the first Graffiti and just have more American Graffiti, but it got all serious about Haight-Ashbury and demonstrations and civil rights and
who's the director?
Vietnam War, and some of your characters got killed, and
Toad got killed, right? Or Milner got one of those two. Oh no, Toad got killed in it.
Toad did not get killed. He was missing in action.
Missing it, right? There you go.
Yeah, he took off in the jungles of Vietnam. But Bo Hopkins, the leader of the Pharaohs, got killed in a helicopter.
Now, who directed more American Graffiti?
A guy named Bill Norton. Bill Norton.
I guess Lucas wanted nothing to do with it?
Oh, he never really liked directing.
Yeah. Well, it's fascinating. What are you planning on doing for the 40th? I don't mean just you, but I mean, is there a big celebration plan?
So far, nothing by Universal Pictures.
How is that possible? How is that possible?
Nothing. Well, they've gone forward. I'm kind of back here stuck in time in graffiti land.
Yeah. Well, it's still 40.
But, they've had, maybe someone needs to call them and say, hey, do you realize, the 40th anniversary is coming up?
I imagine
what are you going to do?
I imagine the media, if nothing else. What was the month that you guys filmed in 73?
It was like in June.
June of 73?
Yes.
And it was released when?
72.
Oh, okay, 72. So it was released in 73.
Yes, it was.
And you remember when it was released?
I do. It was at the Avco Cinema here in Westwood, and they had the cars there, the hot rod cars, and they parked them a few blocks away, and that's where we had to meet. And then we got in the cars from the movie, and then they drove us over to the front of the theater, and then we walked in.
That's amazing.
That was pretty special.
It's an amazing story of a fantastic film, and we're with a fantastic actress. Kandi Clark, what would you like to add? Any website?
Oh, I don't know. I'm kind of running out of steam.
Plug something. What do you got?
I have nothing. I do a lot of hot rod shows, and I like working with my hands. I have a house from the 30s that I'm always constantly painting or doing something to. I have a garden, a vegetable garden that I'm always digging around in, and I got a cat named Betty, and I have a very good life. My health is good. Things are great.
And what was the last acting you've done?
The last thing I did was Criminal Minds, and that was in May, I think it was.
Very good.
It was the season finale.
It sounds like you're doing great, though. It sounds like you're enjoying
it. Good. I have a lot of hot rod shows lined up so far for next year, and
you don't have KandiClark.com or something along those lines?
No.
Oh, wow.
No, I have a Facebook page, and it's really me on the Facebook page.
Oh, that's interesting. So
I respond.
People can get in touch with you through Facebook then?
Yes, I'm pretty well topped out with friends, but, I've met their limits. But now they've added something called subscribers, which I have no idea what that is, but I guess you can tune in and make a comment or look at the page. I don't know what a subscriber really gets you, but, I really enjoy Facebook, and I have gotten work from it.
That's terrific.
Yeah, it's a good, valuable tool.
Kandi Clark from American Graffiti fame and all types of other films, more than 50 films. Kandi, thanks for being here.
Well, you're welcome. Thank you.
And thank you all for listening.
Yay!
And keep an eye out for Kandi around the 40th anniversary. You'll be seeing and hearing a lot about her, I'm sure. She's wonderful. And thank you all for listening. We'll see you next week, and we'll hear you next week on Turning Point.
Turning Point with Frank MacKay is brought to you by Herman, Katz, Conjemi & Klein, Duffy & Duffy, Gold Coast Bank, Heartland Business Center, Morgan Stanley and Smith Barney of PC Wealth Management, and the Hagedorn Little Village School in Seaford, New York. Turning Point with Frank MacKay was produced by GVP Digital Media in Ronkonkoma, New York. Executive producers Frank MacKay and Harry Oates. Associate producers Kristen and John MacKay. Audio and studio engineering Brittany Fergo and Francis Kazmarek. Hotel and accommodations provided by Ohika Castle Hotel and Estates in Huntington, New York. Transportation services provided by Mark of Elegance Limousine in Hauppauge, New York. Catering services provided by Cella Bagels of Selden, New York.